Alright everybody, how we doing today? Fixing that one swoopy thing from going out. My hair's a little crazy. Alrighty. So, from RT, or Ruptly, Boris Johnson rattles Irish peace, but his arrogance may backfire with Irish reunification. Here we go. Boris Johnson is going for it. A no-deal exit from the European Union. His cabinet of hard Brexiteers are turbocharged for an abrupt departure. The consequences could be tumultuous for Ireland. On his first day as British Prime Minister last week, Johnson was candid in his disdain for attempts to minimize disruption in Ireland over Brexit. He slammed the proposed backstop arrangement of maintaining an open border between Northern Ireland and the Republic as anti-democratic and vowed to scrap it. A hard Brexit scenario which Johnson and his cabinet are pushing for will mean Britain leaving the EU single market and customs union without any transition deal. That will inevitably see the return of a hard border for trade and customs control between the Republic of Ireland, an EU member, and Northern Ireland under British jurisdiction. Given the preponderance of daily trade and traffic between the north and south of Ireland, any such border control will cause immense damage to both economies. Yes, it will. And who's to say that it won't also cause tension that could lead to a possible war between the two? I'm not kidding. I mean, with the conflict between Protestants and Catholics within the nation, I would think a hard border might make that a little worse. Best case scenario remains just the same. But it's not just about economics and damage to people's livelihoods. The London government's gung-ho stance on delivering Brexit is endangering the Irish peace process and devolved administration. The Good Friday Agreement signed in 1998 mandates the British and Irish governments to support a power-sharing deal between pro-British unionist parties and pro-independence nationalists in Northern Ireland. That agreement is dependent on maintaining an open border between the two jurisdictions on the island. That is a crucial element for nationalists because it recognizes their rights for a unified Ireland. Irish politicians, north and south, as well as European leaders, have warned Johnson that ditching the backstop guarantee of an open border is unacceptable. However, the British Prime Minister's hardball approach indicates he doesn't give a fig. Johnson has reportedly declined to even make a customary phone call to Taoiseach, I think that's how it is, Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar to discuss his Brexit plans. There appears to be no attempt by the new occupant in Downing Street to meet with European counterparts. Johnson may say he doesn't want a physical border in Ireland, but the reality of a hard exit from the EU will demand that controls have to be established in order to protect the integrity of the EU's single market and customs union. Johnson seems to be daring the EU, but in doing so, he shows a reprehensible disregard for the impact such a game of dare will have in Ireland. They'll probably make a hard border if it comes down to a no deal. They'll have to make a hard border. A negotiation has to be made at some point, and I think he's trying to pressure the EU into it, but what's the incentive? The only one he's hurting is himself, his country, and the people within his country, and that of Ireland. That wouldn't necessarily hurt the EU all that much in the long run, unless they care an awful lot. The Good Friday Agreement brought an end to decades of conflict in Northern Ireland, in which thousands were killed and almost every family was scarred by violence. The Irish Republican Army, or IRA, which had brought its bombing campaign to London with devastating effect, became dormant due to the landmark peace deal. Nevertheless, the devolved power-sharing administration in Northern Ireland has always been an uneasy arrangement. Unionist parties have tended to stymie full implementation of the accord, much to the annoyance of nationalist parties. The latter accuse successive British governments of not advocating more strongly for the Good Friday Agreement by urging the Unionist parties to uphold their side of the bargain. The fact that the main Unionist faction in Northern Ireland, the Hardline Democratic Unionist Party, or DUP, is a crucial partner for the Conservative Party's parliamentary majority in London, as an obvious reason why the British government has limply allowed the DUP to hold the Northern Ireland Assembly in suspension. The Assembly broke down more than 2 years ago over a financial scandal and has dragged on in a state of limbo. That vacuum in local administration has gravely undermined the Good Friday Agreement and people's faith in the peace process. Moreover, the hardline Northern Ireland Unionists are also happy with Johnson's high-handed approach to Brexit. They don't want a backstop arrangement because, in their view, that undermines Northern Ireland's jurisdiction under British rule. So in the parliamentary back between Johnson's Conservative government and the DUP, there is something of a devil's bargain that relishes the scenario of a no-deal Brexit and the accompanying erection of a hard border between Northern Ireland and its southern neighbour. This is a long one. Britain's new Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab, who is a Johnson acolyte for a hard Brexit, has announced plans to introduce direct rule from London over Northern Ireland in the event of a no-deal exit from Europe in October 31st. Well, that'll go over like a lead balloon. The return of direct rule from London is an incendiary development for Irish nationalists. The decades of violence and years of hard-fought political negotiations to create the Good Friday Agreement were aimed at achieving a measure of Irish autonomy from London. For many Irish nationalists, the agreement was seen as a compromise on a longer political path towards full Irish independence and reunification. Irish history shows that violent conflict is always a recurring reaction to British meddling and presence. Periods of relative peace are often followed by a resurgence in armed struggle against British rule. The reckless way London is now jeopardizing the peace settlement is a classic example of how ignorant English politicians are stoking unrest. Small groups of dissident Irish Republicans who split off from the IRA will now have a renewed recruitment impetus by claiming the Good Friday Agreement was a sellout to the cause of Irish freedom. Johnson, in his Anglo-centric pursuit of freedom from Europe, is putting jingoist English nationalism over the needs and concerns of Ireland. He is pandering to hardline Unionists in Northern Ireland, but they represent a minority view on the whole island. There are plenty of reasons to believe that more liberal Unionists in Northern Ireland are opposed to Johnson's hard Brexit. When the UK held the Brexit referendum in June 2016, the majority of Northern Ireland's electorate voted to remain in the EU, as did the people of Scotland. It's really kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. You already had a negotiated Brexit deal that Theresa May got you, but it sucks. You could go for that hard Brexit, but it sucks. Your position, Britain, I envy you not. But I completely understand why you'd want out of the EU. Completely. But it's not going to be easy. I think what you need to do at this point is just pick which one is going to be the most survivable and deal with it. And that may mean taking Theresa May's originally negotiated deal, whether you like it or not. Because Boris Johnson thinks he can talk the EU into getting you guys a new deal, but based on what I'm seeing, I don't think that's likely, man. I don't think it's going to happen. It's a pipe dream. Still, here may arise the real surprise outcome. Hopefully violent conflict in Ireland is avoided by the stoicism of its people. But what may transpire, prompted by the British government's reckless disdain, is the holding of a referendum for a reunited Ireland. A clear call for Irish independence is looking increasingly likely, delivered by a majority in Northern Ireland, including voters who previously would have considered themselves pro-British but who have come to the conclusion that toffs like Johnson, or toughs like Johnson, don't have a toss about their lives. Don't give a toss. It's one of those neat little Britishisms. Scotland, like Northern Ireland, could also go its separate way. Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon this week called for another independence referendum amid recent polls showing a majority for final separation from London's rule. The amusing paradox is that Johnson and his arrogant Brexiteers claim they want to make the United Kingdom ever stronger by pushing their dreams of reviving British greatness. They are rupturing London's shaky union with Scotland and Northern Ireland. The latter is particularly at risk from an unraveling peace process, but may also give rise to the end of British rule in Ireland peacefully. Never mind the anti-democratic backstop as Johnson would claim. It is Britain's persistent assertion over Irish sovereignty that is the real anti-democratic issue. To be honest with you, Ireland it's not that surprising that British politicians don't understand you or don't seem to care. Because it seems to me that a lot of the time, politicians only give a damn about what they want. Or alternatively, people, they think they understand you, but they actually don't. Because they're far away and living a different existence from you. Just like when the rich get in office and think that they suddenly magically understand the poor working class and actually end up doing more harm than help. Ignorance can be deadly. If only there was a way you could honestly actually educate these politicians to sort of wake them up and make them realize that what they're doing is bad, that they don't actually know what the hell they're talking about. Wouldn't that be great? Question is, would they even bother to listen? Still, that hard Brexit is going to get you a hard border in Ireland. And I've already said my piece on what I think you guys should do. Either go with Theresa May's deal or do the hard Brexit. Pick which one you think is survivable, and then just deal with it. Because I don't think the EU is going to give you another deal. I don't think that's going to happen. Highly unlikely. Anyway.